Hey everybody, we are live today with Jason Coleman. We are going to be talking about pricing your membership levels.
Hi there. How's it going, Sam?
It's going good. I wish the weather would go away.
Yeah, no,
We need
not
some
good, huh?
sunshine here because
Thunderstorms.
thunderstorms and
We
tornadoes and hail and high winds
have you
sound scary.
in Pennsylvania? It hadn't rained for like 2 months, so it rained a few days ago, and it was scary. But like we all needed the rain, so we were welcoming it.
We need the rain. We just don't need the destruction of the wind and the hail.
Okay, yeah, that's extra.
We'll take the rain, but the extra stuff can go away.
All right, yeah, calm down.
Hopefully the dogs
Yesterday
stay
here
quiet.
we had yeah, we can chit chat while people are coming on. Oh, we got 9 viewers already. Nice. Hey, as folks come into the live stream, please say hi in the chat. And in particular, if you posted a comment, say hi and remind us your name or your question. I'm sorry, on the question form for the live stream. You know, say hi so we know you're there. I like to answer the questions when the people are watching so they can see the answer. We don't always create VODs from these, and it might get lost.
That, and if you're kind of questioning your pricing or unsure in which direction you want to go to, but you have information, you can throw it in the comments as well, and we can pick Jason's brain on specific issues too.
Yeah, we're gonna be talking about pricing, and I got lots to say generally. I'll go through some things, a kind of best of the pricing tips that I've gathered throughout the years. But pricing is a very it's different for different businesses and different membership sites. And so knowing a little bit more about the types of sites and businesses and memberships that are watching will help me focus it. Can we get back to the rain though? We we had this yesterday, Ryan, where microbursts of rain. That's a really good term for it. It was back and forth. Yesterday it was pitch black, thunderstorm, coming down crazy hard, and then 10 minutes later the sun is out and birds are chirping.
Welcome to Florida, y'all.
20 minutes later, thunderstorm again. And I didn't get to go
that's just our everyday thing.
Yeah, that's a tropical thing. But in Kansas, I don't know. Pennsylvania, we're not used to it.
You're not in Kansas anymore, Toto.
It's probably good rainbow weather. I didn't get out. I was just working all day yesterday and didn't really get outside, look for rainbows. That's a metaphor. All right, maybe I can say hi. Remind us if you send in a question. Feel free to mention your sites and what you're thinking about pricing. Otherwise, I can dig into some things I have on my list here.
You want me to share your screen, or do you want
Yeah, I can push it.
Okay.
I can share the screen is good. Then folks can see what's coming up.
You don't even need me.
Yeah, I'm gonna send you away. No, you stay there. Be my foil. Keep my headphones on. Actually, it'd be good because I'll just talk through this stuff, and I think you've been here long enough that you've heard us talk about this, but I mean, some of this might be new, and if you can stand in for the audience here and ask follow-up questions.
Yeah, and I was also on the team when we did our last pricing change. So
being
a part of that, of like the documentation for everything and going through the change and helping customers through the change, I was part of all that too.
Fun times. We're going to do it again. Let's do it. We should do it every year. I'll get to it. But this guy I've been following a lot lately, Marcos Rivera. He has this advice. You'll see when I get to this part, he has tons of clever frameworks and names for things. And I forget the name for this, but he basically says you should change your pricing at least every 2 years, no more than once every 6 months. And it kind of makes sense. So we've been about on that pace. So we I don't know. This isn't going to be about the PMPro pricing show unless we run out of questions. But yeah.
One of the restaurants I frequent, I've noticed like since COVID that they're upping their prices probably every like 3 to 4 months.
Oh, wow.
And it's really turned me off to like eat there frequently because like every time I go, it's higher.
You feel like
it's like too frequent.
Ripping you off.
Yeah. And their
It,
quality of food
well, there
isn't
you go.
getting
The
any better.
psychology.
So
Too frequent. Yeah. So he says no more than every 6 months. So you kind of like put too much pressure on people's and their expectation if you do it too often. So I'll go through some of my common advice. So I think probably the number one thing that I like that I express over and over when I'm interacting with customers and they have questions or I'm looking at their site or they're asking me for advice, is I see people who are early on before they have many members already signed up. Maybe they don't have any members signed up or just a handful. They come up with very elaborate pricing schemes and very elaborate invite schemes. Everyone who comes gets like 2 invites and it's 50% off, but 25% if it's a Friday. And this case, like I'm going to split up the guys and the girls for the dating site. And um, so, but I think especially early on, it's important to keep it simple. So if possible, when you're launching, if this is the first time you're charging for access to something and you don't have paying customers already, it really behooves you to have like one plan, one price, and use that to feel it out. Now, maybe that puts a lot of pressure if you feel like this is the one time I can ask for, membership. You really have to figure it out, but that's usually not the case. Usually you can change your pricing as later as you go. But I'd say keep it simple. So if you aren't already accepting money, try to have one plan, try to avoid complex invite schemes. Something I talk about a lot too is anniversary pricing over same day each year. I forget there's a term for that, but if you were an offline association, many of them would have everyone renew on January 1st or December 31st. And that was like for 2 weeks, the accountant or the secretary or someone comes in and processes membership dues and everyone renews on January 1st. And that works really well for offline associations where maybe they're meeting up once a year or people have to mail in checks. And again, you don't want someone having to process 1 or 2 checks per day. It's nice for them to just come in and do all, 200-300 if you're lucky in one day. That's different when it's online. Like Paid Memberships Pro does the work for you. Stripe and PayPal do the work for you. It's better to have people pay immediately when they check out and 1 year from when they check out or 1 month from when they check out, get charged again automatically in a subscription. What it does is it spreads your subscriptions across the year, which takes off the load on your server. So if on your website server, so if you have everyone checking out on January 1st, it's as if, like a few hundred or a few thousand people sometimes are hitting your website at the same time. And maybe your website can't handle that. Or even just emails, like some mail services have email limits of like a few hundred per day or 500 per day. So instead, if you spread it out throughout the year, you're spreading out the access to your website. The other thing it's good at is every time someone's checking out on your website, that's feedback for how well you're doing with your sales and marketing. And so if you only get people signing up once a year, you only get feedback once a year. So if you change something a little bit about who you're targeting, how you're talking to your members, the value that you're giving, and you're kind of expecting 100% of people to renew, and then January 1st rolls around and only 50% of people renew, you're like, oh my, this is a huge, huge deal. You're like, what happened? I have to figure it out. If people are checking out throughout the year, you'll get an indication of that sooner than later. So say you have 1,000 members, I don't know, like 100 per month, you'll see a month with 50 when you expected 100, and you have all that time to figure out like, wait, what happened? And it's not as, you have some more time to figure it out before other people renew. So it's like, keep it simple. All plans recurring. Sometimes it's, we have like an interesting add-on called like the auto renewal checkbox, which like feels amazing. It's like, give people the option at checkout. Do they want it to automatically renew or not? And in practice one, it's like technically a challenge to incorporate that concept into the other things you might be doing at checkout, but also for the users, like we found, we used to have that option on our site and I forget the exact stats, but when we removed it, we had like a 20% higher renewal rate, which kind of makes sense. It's like people are automatically renewing. They're much more likely to renew. And I'm not a fan of deceptive pricing tactics where like you trick people into renewing even though they're not using your product anymore. Like that's not this. It's just, if the easier it is for people to renew, the more likely it is for them to renew, the more likely they're going to interact with your site. We definitely send an email like before the renewal. They have a chance to cancel. That's good to like limit refunds and stuff like that. So yeah, like pick like it, memberships are often renewing. So choose some like one plan that renews. It should be anniversary just from the date. It's kind of like the simple settings, no complex invite teams when you're starting out, and eventually you'll have time to change it. And I think some questions are trickling in, so it'd be good
Yeah,
to,
we do. We do.
yeah. You want to pick
Ryan
some
has
good ones
like
out?
a yeah, Ryan has like a series of comments to
Okay.
lead up to Ryan's question. So Ryan says, I've got a question about this. Our organization was trying to find the best way to
Mm,
price our memberships to make it affordable to even the lowest income around the world. We went with variable pricing and found that quite a few people
mm.
gave more than the suggested amount.
Wow.
My question is there really a way to scale if we have a variable pricing structure?
Hmm. Awesome. Thanks for the question. And yeah, variable pricing. We have a variable pricing add-on, and if other folks aren't familiar, what it basically does is usually suggests an amount, but then has like a text box and says you can pay what you want, or sometimes it's a drop down to pay what you want. And I think Ryan here has some some success with that, specifically getting people around the world. There's like we call that localized pricing, and we're looking into that. Localized pricing on our own website, and maybe to have an offering. Some people do it ad hoc, like Ryan is doing with the variable pricing, or you can like kind of create discount codes for different regions and have people reach out and get the discount code. And or you could do things like we do, where paid memberships pro, there's like a very generous free level, and you can always fall back to that when people, want access and stuff like that. Um, I wonder, Ryan, like what some people do with variable pricing, maybe this hits Ryan, is they create almost like a Patreon model where, depending on how much they pay, they get different perks. And one thing I'll say is like, you'd be very surprised. Like it often feels like the people who are paying more need to get the best stuff, more value, or like hold back for them. But it's usually the opposite. Like you want to lead with your best value content and, membership offerings and things like that, and maybe give a lot of it away for free, and really wow people at the lower levels. And then when people are fans of your your personality, your service, your membership, they're willing to pay for a little bit extra for just, um, like if you have a community. I don't know what kind of site this is, Ryan, so I can't exactly figure out what your plans would be. But you can think of like a Patreon model, and there's ways to do that. Like I call it like lo-fi. So just in the description of your level, you can say, hey, people who pay this amount get X, people who pay this amount get Y. And then follow up and give it to them retroactively after they sign up, and maybe even change their level if it's like access on the site. And there's ways to programmatically do that, as well, with custom code and things like that. But maybe if you could be more specific about what you meant by scale, like if you feel like, I'm trying to figure out what you meant by that, so you can follow up.
Well, the one
Oh,
follow-up is Ryan is a nonprofit community and resource site.
resource site. Yeah. So it could be, if it's community, you could have like a closed off section for people who are paying more. Sometimes people want that, sometimes not. That can kind of split your community if it's not, strong enough. But sometimes stuff like, I don't know, t-shirts and mugs and, minor things like that. They're just their names, or actually in the community getting like badges of some sort, or like if it is different membership levels, like I know the way we integrate with BB Press and, allows you to, it shows the membership level. It's an easier customization to do no matter what service you're using. But so kind of show, sometimes people, show them, hey, this person's sponsoring the website basically. And I think another thing you could do, and we're like, is you could follow up on the people who are paying below the market rate and kind of check in with them, maybe once a year or every couple of years. Say, hey, like we enjoy that you're appreciating the site. Like they just won't think about it. Like they signed up for free and now they got a job again or something, or they got a different position and the new nonprofit they work for, has a budget. And just kind of like, you could think about doing that, like an email to people who are paying below a certain amount, encouraging them like, hey, you're free to stay where you're at, but you should consider, and especially if you have perks lined up for that, it can kind of help. You might be surprised. Yeah, go ahead.
Brian said scale, meaning get more signups and or finding ways to increase minimum pricing while still allowing regional socioeconomic levels to be able to access.
Yeah.
The other thing about variable
Yeah.
pricing though would be like if there's this resource, this library of resources or whatever, I might only put like a value of $50 on it, whereas you might come in and be like, oh no, that library of resources is worth 200. Like, so I mean, just value to person is different, as you know.
Yeah, there's a technical term for that called like willingness to pay. And in an ideal world, you capture 100% of what people are willing to pay. Excuse me. And like I said, we were looking into this for Paid Memberships Pro recently, and so I'm reading up on it. And one thing that was surprising to me is I often think of like the third world country where they, the cost of living is lower, the average salary is lower, and so we're like, hey, let's lower the price for those folks. But there's actually, I think it's like Denmark and the UK, on average, the willingness to pay for services is above like the US rate. So I haven't done it yet, but we're considering like the UK tax. Watch out. But yeah, I have some other stuff I can share about willingness to pay. I think, Ryan, maybe stay in touch because we're doing localized pricing. And so a couple things we're doing that maybe would map is we're detecting like folks' IP address, and based on that, probably where they're from. And based on that, then both showing the membership price in their local currency, which is like just a courtesy. They still pay US dollars, but they're going to see it in, yen or, euros or wherever they're coming from. And then also we have like a list based on, I forget where we got it from, a couple different sources on cost of living adjustments and indexes. And then we mapped it to like what our needs are. People have to pay about at least this. This is the discount that we can handle. And then people can get a discount. And we haven't launched this yet, but it'll show a discount code. So if you're from an IP address, you get a message saying like, hey, we love people in India. Here's a discount code. I don't know, for, just for you. And I've seen people doing like special landing pages also, because it's a lot of times, I could imagine this for the nonprofit community. There's different, depending on what part of the world you're from, that means something different, like kind of speaking to them, and you could like put it in their language. So you could even redirect people to different landing pages and stuff, depending on the IP address is like a pretty good proxy for like where people are from. And you can always I think one thing here is like, you're worried about people taking advantage of it. And it sounds like you're doing variable pricing already. So you understand this. It's like, let people take advantage of you and then retroactively follow up. If you're a community, you're going to follow up and be like, didn't you say you were from Argentina? And like, where are you now? And, just kind of enforce it that way. So stay in touch. If you're interested in some of the localization stuff, the time scale, like probably a few months from now, we'll be in like a month or so, we'll be launching on our site, and a few months from now, trying to figure out how we can give early access to the code that we have for some other people to try out.
We also have a string of comments from Jim for Jim's question. Hi there, did not send a question. I have a site for connecting professional coaches with people wanting help. Free level gives coaches the ability to have a basic profile, thinking of 2 more levels with extra features, video, scheduling widgets, etc. I like the idea of an annual fee. I was also thinking of making all levels initially free to get some invited early adopters to get their ideas on features and costs.
Yeah.
Ultimately, like, what's the benefit of annual versus monthly fees?
Awesome. Thanks, Jim. I think this touches on a few points that I wanted to talk about anyway. So let me know if I miss anything. One thing in there he said about like making it free to start, to get access. I think that's a great idea. I've heard of that working. I mean, we have a freemium model here too, for some folks, for community-based sites, and definitely for like directory type sites. It's kind of like, get them stuck, like get them addicted to your website. Like it sounds like it's kind of a directory. So the coaches are going to be making money off people reaching out to them. So if you get them on your site for free and then they start getting leads and you find out, and I think what's tough sometimes is trying to get like accurate information from folks. Like they want to get the leads. They want to pay as little as possible for them, but that's just something you got to navigate in the interviews. But then like if they're on the site for a year and then you start charging, like they're going to stay on because they're making money from it. And you could probably get more people in the door. That's kind of generally, although sometimes people don't value it. They don't put the effort in unless they're paying a little bit. So it really depends like on the audience you have already, or like if scale, like, the quantity of coaches matters, or definitely like if you're monetizing the coaches, you want to make sure you like don't monetize the people who are looking for coaches. Things like that. Like if you're doing like a chicken and an egg type model, probably, yeah, I don't know. Think about that. But actually, like a framework to help you think about that in terms of both like who do you charge, how much, and how do you do that is something that's called, you would do like value-based pricing, or specifically you want to find what's called your value metric. So I'm thinking about your site. So the idea of the concept of a value metric is that there's one aspect. If you have like a bunch of levels, a free level, a low level, a medium, and a large, small, medium, large, you want some kind of metric that grows with people as they go from small, medium, large. That is also something that people value, so they're willing to pay for it. And it should almost be kind of like obvious to them. So like a good example of a value metric is like number of seats for a software as a service. So it's kind of how many people can sign up. So like, Help Scout is a tool for getting, taking help requests. And like one of their value metrics is like, how many support agents do you have? Because it's a good analogy for like how big the company is. So you don't say big companies pay more, you just say it charges by the seat. Big companies tend to have more seats, and so they need to pay more. And so it's like natural, and people don't kind of blink, they just naturally get bigger. The other thing that's good about a value metric is if like it scales with the success of your members. So it could be like leads. So like if you're selling coaching, I'm trying to figure out on the fly here for the coaching site. It could be leads where like you get a certain amount of leads. But or it's weird to like cut off the leads at a certain point. But it's as you get more leads, you pay for more. So I mean, I feel like the coaches, like the way they think about it are like, oh, I definitely would pay more if I got more leads. That would be a good value metric. I have seen like directories where like and you know what it is? It's kind of a proxy for leads. You can pay for like more prominent placement for a bigger directory, for video and images on your directory in addition to things. So that's a method to find out. I think one thing that might help you is to look into, so here, let's skip ahead to one of Marcos Rivera's buzzwords. He's got a few. So Marcos Rivera is kind of like a pricing expert. He's like, he worked at a PE firm, private equity firm. And so they would review companies and they would hire the companies and then help them make more money once, or not hire, but they would like acquire or invest, a sizable portion of companies. And then they try to make them more efficient and make more money. And one of the things you would do is like get them to like fix their pricing. He has a book called Street Pricing, which is really good. And you can find that. I actually have a copy in front of me too. It's that good. So this is what I've been reading a lot. So you can check out that book, but specifically he has this framework called the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 framework. It's cute, but he says like, so find 5 customers and there's a little bit more to this. So read the book or find his website and read his stuff. Do 4 interviews with those customers, get the price, check out 3 of your competitors and get their pricing. If you're already selling, gather 2 years of sales data and like get like 1 year of your product roadmap. And what this effectively is this is like Marcos's checklist. If he was working with you, he would look at all these things and then offer you a bunch of tips for how to adjust your pricing. But if you're going your own, That's the kind of the way to look at it. And I think you said about like getting customers in and talking with them and figuring out what they want to pay for. But some things to guide you in those interviews is to look for what's called like a value metric. So figure out like, what are the metrics that matter to your customers that will scale with their success and they'll be willing to pay for naturally between plans. And I think that'll start to, some things should kind of pop out to you of like, oh, we can, this is what people are talking about, how they think about it and what's natural. So hopefully that helps a little bit. And you said about annual versus monthly. That could be a good segue into a topic I like to talk about, which is like the timing of pricing. So people will talk about like value pricing. So like ideally the cost of your membership should somehow match, or actually, should match the value that you give, or the value you give should be a multiple of what you're charging, right? So if you have a $10 course is different from a $1,000 course. The $1,000 course has to deliver more. So I think that concept, that's an important one to think about, is like, how much value are people getting? You might think like, oh, it took me 100 hours to make this. That's important because you want to make sure you're compensated. But what's important to the customers is, how much time are they going to save? How much money are they going to save? How is it going to help them reach their goals? That's value. But then there's timing. So I think some people forget about the timing of their pricing. I mean, I'm trying to find a membership pricing. Front load your membership, W revenues. I have a cool chart, and this is a cool story in here. So I think you also want how often you charge the customer to be in alignment with when they're getting the value. So as a story, and this maybe doesn't apply to you exactly, Jim, but you can figure out how to map it. I forget the fellow. Do I talk about them here? But there's a guy with a course who it helped you quit alcohol. So I forget exactly what it was, but you would go dry for 30 days. And it was an email course in a community. So every day he'd send you like a motivational email, like stick up to it. This is what you're doing. And it was a community of people, and they would help you stay dry for a month. And folks who were having problems with that, they would quit alcohol, which is, if they were alcoholic in particular, but even just folks who just, felt like they were partying too much or something, it wasn't a problem. They would still like not spend money on alcohol and save a bunch of money. They would all lose like 10, 20 pounds. They would all like, their skin would get better. They would get, twice as much energy. They would like rekindle their romance with their estranged lover. They would like be nicer to their kids. They like all this stuff, like in 30 days, and I forget exactly what he was charging for a membership. But say he was charging like, I have the numbers in here, like $50 a month. So in the first month for $50, your whole life changes. You save $300 in alcohol, you lose 20 pounds, you get back with your ex, and your kids love you again, right? Because you quit alcohol. And then his question was like, hey, what do I do in month 2? How do I get people to give me like another $50? And it's like, well, you gave them like so much value. That's this chart. Like the amount of value you gave them was off the charts. And then in month 2, like, you're not giving them more than you gave them already. You're just giving them a place to talk. So if you shift from like, in this case, if you shift from like $50 a month to like $300 a year, and you get $300 up front, the $300 matches the value that you get from the course, and then you have a whole year already up front. You don't need them to hang out for 6 months to get back to get the same amount of money. So I think now there's a bigger cost to get up front. So if you go from, if you a higher annual fee from a lower monthly fee, fewer people potentially will sign up. But usually it makes it worth it. Like if your lifetime value for a customer is typically like 3 to 6 months. The average member sticks around for 3 to 6 months. If you just keep the same monthly price and make it annual, you get 2 to 4 times as much money on fewer customers. So even if you would need less than half of the same number of people to sign up for it to not work out. I think the hand waving on that example is pretty tough. So, and the numbers matter, but I think those are the things to think about. It's like the timing of your value. If you are delivering value every single month, like you have like a meetup every month, you're delivering like a video every month, it's a radio show, it's, you know, it's something that has a cadence of every month people get the thing and they're going to stay subscribed so they can get next month's thing, then you should have monthly fees. If it's kind of a, if the value is not delivered like that, it's more abstract. If it's either front loaded, you know, because they get access to all the courses all at once, or if it's kind of access to a community, I would recommend annual membership, because it just gives you longer time to kind of deliver the value and get them hooked. You know, like you don't need their cash. You just want them showing up. So you already got their cash, and now you're just trying to get them to like turn this into a habit. So next year, when you give them charge them for another year, they're like, of course, I love this. I come here all the time. Whereas what you don't want them to do is like, well, I'm going away for the summer for 2 months, so I should cancel and then I'll renew. And that person's not likely to come back. There is like here's like I wrote this up here, like a story I've seen play out like a few times. And actually a few times it's also our story, Paid Memberships Pro. That's like a good example. We started out with a monthly plan for access to support. And we had a similar story to, like, we weren't helping people stop drinking. We were helping them set up a membership site, but we delivered all the value in month one. In month one, they got access to all the software. They had all their support. And unless they were really taking their time, they launched their site within a month or two and they didn't have questions anymore. So then what was happening inevitably was like month 3 or maybe 4, 5, 6. They're like, wait, why am I paying you every month? And we're like, oh, because you might need help. And they're like, I don't. So they would cancel. And then like 3 months later, they'd be like, I have a question. And they would sign up, ask a question, and then they'd be okay. And they would cancel. So we weren't delivering value every month. We were, delivering it at a slower pace, but we were delivering value once a year. Most people have a question once a year. We have updates every few months, new add-ons roll out. So we have, over the course of a year, we have a lot of opportunities to like deliver more value to get people to think it's worth sticking around for a year. So we went from monthly to annual. And then we went from like one-time payments, like you just pay for a month, it expires, and then you have to check out again, to, like I said, keep it simple, make it recurring. And we started with it's optional. So if people complained, like, hey, I don't want an automatic, that feels shady. Like, we would get a few of those. When we switched to recurring mandatory, we got a few of those, and people could just cancel immediately. And it would, with our cancel on next payment date add-on, they wouldn't lose access right away. It would just cancel the recurring subscription. But when we switched from recurring optional to recurring mandatory, we got like 20 to 30% more renewals. And then we went through a series with like discounts, where at first we gave a recurring discount on follow-up years because the value, like I said, we deliver more value in year 1 and year 2. And the load on us, there's usually less support for our members in year 2. They have less questions. So we're like, hey, let's entice them to renew by giving them a discount on their second year. And we did that for a while, and it does increase the renewal rate. But one, it adds a bunch of confusion. People are like, wait, why did I pay $300 last year if it's only $150 this year? And you're like, no, I'm giving you a discount. And they're like, I only wanted to pay $150 last year. And you're like, no, so it's confusing, is one thing. And then the other thing is, I think for Paid Memberships Pro, and you got to figure this out for a membership, like, it seems like we're quote unquote delivering value in year 1 because that's when a lot of the support is. That's when they're downloading the software. That's when they're reading our documentation and the things they get access to. But actually, like, our members build a business and start making money. And the ones who are around for year 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the value, it's way more important to them. If you've been on Paid Memberships Pro for 5 years, like, your Paid Memberships Pro site is hugely valuable to you, and your willingness to pay goes up. So even though we're delivering less, the willingness to pay is up there. So, we don't mess from like year to year discounts. And then the next step that maybe we'll go to is like, give them a big discount in the first year, to get more people in, because by year 2 and 3, if you're making money on Paid Memberships Pro, and this is an analogy for your membership site, if by year 2 or 3, your business has doubled because your coaching business has doubled from the leads you're getting, or you're performing better and excelling, you got to raise in your career at your nonprofit, in the nonprofit community, like you're kind of a member for life and your willingness to pay goes up. So I guess this is like a little bit of story time to like think about how the value and cost, and then like how the value timing, how that like plays into psychology of people signing up for your service. Cool. Yeah. Sam, are you talking to me and I don't hear it? No, it's okay.
No, I was not talking to you.
Okay.
This time.
I clicked on Ryan's comment here about people disregarding the notices to renew. And yeah, that's a tough one. And I think if you're getting chargebacks and refunds after they like it renews, you do just have to try harder to communicate, because especially now where like you don't get refund fees refunded back to you. Like it costs your business a lot to process refunds. And it puts you at risk of like the gateways taking away your access and stuff like that. But definitely like if people miss a payment, I think following up, it's called dunning, is pretty important. And we'd like to like build better automated tools for this. If you're only using Stripe has decent tools for this. And we kind of have like a quasi manual process for following up with people. But like one tip I would give there is to not feel like it's too aggressive. As long as people can say, I'm absolutely not interested, stop sending me emails. There's always a link in every email to like opt out completely. You'd be surprised. Like I see it in the stats all the time. It's like, oh, it was like the 8th email got someone to renew, it's like the 20th email. And so I think ours actually taps out now around 4 or 5 emails we try to contact, but, you shouldn't be like, oh, you'd like be timid about emailing people about paying.
But you should email people to pay. Cause like,
yes. Yeah.
My Amazon Prime just renewed, but I did not get an email about it. And so it was just like $100 sucked out of my account. And I was like, oh, okay.
Oh yeah.
Today. And it was like unexpected.
Yeah. People are
so like it kind of made me mad, but I don't want to get a refund because it's something I use, but it's just like, let me know about it.
Yeah. You definitely, this is one of those where, technically you like, if you don't remind people, they're more likely to stick around. Cause like, oh yeah, I wanted to cancel that. But I think on balance, it's not really that way. And actually the way the credit card companies are requiring kind of like 2-factor and follow up, and that renewal payment, like a lot of folks get failure rates on that renewal payment. And there's a tons of factors that go into it, from like where your business is, where your customers are, how much you charge, different fraud rates and things like that. But it's not surprising for like the credit card company just to decide not to renew. So like, I think as often as you scare someone away by giving them information about the renewal, you get someone to like make sure that they renew by giving them the information. And yeah. So definitely send an email. We have, I guess right now for, is it only through an add-on that we do recurring payment emails? We got to build that in. Just take a note. It's on our roadmap to build in there's an add-on to send renewal emails. If I'm not mistaken, with PMPro. And, you also can like from the gateway send emails about those things. But that's a good idea. Let's see. Is there anyone else? Did any of the folks who sent us questions?
I don't think
from before
any of them are here. I didn't recognize any names, but let me check our document. I don't see a Stefan or Steven. Dennis Rose, dating intentionally. No, I don't.
Right.
I don't see anybody that
submitted
earlier.
Cool. Yeah, ask some questions. I got some other stuff that I wanted to go through here. So we talked about keeping it simple. We talked about, I guess one thing we didn't really talk about was the ability to change your pricing or relaunch later. This is like another piece of advice I find myself giving is folks they launch for $50 a month, and then they realize like, oh my gosh, like that's not enough money. I do all this stuff. It costs me like $50 a month just to, hire people to handle it and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I got to charge more. And it's like, okay, charge more, especially early on. It's like, it's going to make people mad. It's like you need to focus on the like hundreds of customers that you're trying to get rather than the few handful of customers you already got. And you definitely don't want to take for granted like the early adopters. They're important, but you'd be surprised. Like you can lock them into the price that they're already at, legacy pricing, and go after new customers, and you'll make it up. You could there's a few different frameworks. I think Marcos in his book has one that was pretty good about, instead of locking them in indefinitely, giving them like 6 months to a year, like, hey, we'll give you the same price for 6 months to a year, and then you're going to get increased to the real price, the full price. But just, hey, if this is too much for you and you honestly can't afford it, like just email us and we'll handle it. And that usually comes across, like if someone's upset about that, like, I don't know, like you probably don't want them in your community anymore, but that usually comes across well, that like you care about the early adopters. You send that email. And by the way, like when you send that email, if you are doing legacy pricing, you put it in the subject line to the exist, like your membership price is not changing. We're raising prices, but your price isn't changing. You want it like in the subject line. I remember when we composed that email, and I've seen this play out like a couple times now. It was in the email, and then I was like, nah, it needs to be in the first paragraph. And I was like, nah, it needs to be the first sentence of the first paragraph. And I think it wasn't in the subject line. We still had people reach out to us and say like, do I have to pay more? And I was like, literally the first sentence of the email says you don't have to pay more. So I was like, just put it in the subject. It's like, that bit of it, don't bury the lead. Tell them, hey, things aren't changing. Here's what we're doing. Things aren't changing for you. Here's what's happening. And when you do that, like, it's always, just ask for the money, or explain that you're raising the prices, and don't be too defensive. And people definitely don't want to hear about like your woes and your costs and like, hey, it costs a lot of money to do this, and my people have to be paid more. Like, they don't want to know like the internal operations of your business that are really leading you to raising the prices. What you should do instead is, like, one, like I said, just give them extended roadway and time to adjust and stuff like that. And then two, like, talk about all the awesome stuff that you're adding. And probably we're all good at this stuff, right? Year over year, even month over month, it's like, hey, we started with X and now we have 10X, and we had 5 add-ons and now we have 50. And we had to, like, just remind them of how much value they're getting out of the membership, and they'll feel good about, having to pay, they'll feel okay that they're going to pay more in a year or 6 months or a couple of years or something.
I did share the blog post that we wrote on the do's and don'ts of raising prices when we did our pricing change.
Yep. There's some good advice. I know that Amy Hoy has some good advice we probably link to in our blog post there about how to do that. But also, like, you can relaunch. Like, that's another one, is like you send an email to like your mailing list and you're like, here's my new thing, pay for it. And like 2 people show up or no one shows up. And it's like, hopefully you're always learning. So you learn something from that. Like, hey, that email didn't work. No one cared about what I wrote in that email. And you got to figure out, like, hey, go talk to more customers, go talk to more people, figure out like why the message wasn't landing. But don't feel timid to, like, a month later or later than that. Like, just send another email to the group and call it your launch. No one will remember that you like tried to launch and failed. No one would care. So especially early on, feel fine, iterating through things and change your prices. And that's one of the reasons too, to keep it simple. So like if you are, what is that? I think Marco said like every 2 years, change your pricing, but no more than every 6 months. When you start to have members recurring, stuff like that, you don't want to confuse them more than every 6 months. And change that rule of thumb. Like, change pricing means like not just increase pricing, but like add new plans, have additional add-ons, change the nature, the wording of your offer. So that's what it means by changing your pricing. It's not always just raising the price.
The structure a little bit too, because
yeah,
if I remember correctly, originally it wasn't like a number of licenses for the plan, and now it's like standard. We use 1 license plus, I think it's like 5 license. So like we kind of changed the structure of it a little bit as well.
Yeah.
Ryan has a technical question for you.
Okay.
How do you keep legacy pricing for those who have already signed up? Do you just change the price on the current membership level?
Yeah, that's basically it. The way Paid Memberships Pro works by default is that With every gateway, the subscription is handled at the gateway. So Stripe or PayPal, or there's a few others. So when you change the level on a membership, it doesn't automatically update every subscription that's already there. It leaves them as is. So yeah, if you had a $50 a month membership and you changed it to $100 a month, everyone whose subscription was already set up, is locked into $50 a month. And as long as their subscription renews, if they don't miss a payment and have to check out again, they'll get charged, the old rate. And we do some things to be, like even to allow that legacy pricing to go on longer that requires some custom code. Like on our site, I think it's like if within a month, like if you cancel them within a month, sign up again, there's some logic. It's like, what were they paying cheaper before? Like just let them charge. I think the lo-fi way to do that is to just like have people email. So they're like, wait, wasn't I paying whatever? It's like, send us an email and we'll like, give you the old rate. Like putting a little bit of friction isn't a bad idea because, yeah, but that's the default. So what's more complicated is if you want to increase the subscription for everyone, which is meaningful at time, like something you want to do. In the software now, what you can do is kind of change everyone to expire manually, and then they have to check out again. Or we have some scripts to help like set an expiration date for everyone, and then they have to check out again. But of course, if you're forcing people to kind of check out, that adds friction. But it does force them to opt into the new price, and there's less risk that they will, be surprised by the increase and get upset. But if you want to update subscriptions for active subscriptions, that requires like quite a bit of like technical. We have a script to do it. We don't even share it, but you kind of need a developer to run it. And more important than the technical piece, and like one of the reasons we don't make this available too much is like you said earlier, you have to send a lot of emails to remind people that they're going to pay again. So especially if you're going to charge more, you better make sure that like you got a hold of those folks and gave them a heads up, or like everyone's going to be upset. So it's really kind of tricky. Actually, I think it's part of that blog post. What's really nice is like keep them on the old plan, limit the functionality of the old plan, create a new plan at the new price, and kind of, this is the best case scenario, have them opt into the new plan. It's like, so you could, hey, I know like in a community, or like we had this new content on the site. And if you think in advance about this as you're launching it, like, hey, we're giving you limited time access, for the next year, but then you're going to lose access. And then they lose access. And it's like, do you want access to everything? You need to change from the low plan to the new higher price plan. So if you do some planning in advance, when you realize like someone signed up for 5 courses and then later on they have like 15 courses, and you're like, shoot, they're getting a bunch more, I should raise the price. As you're launching courses, if you plant the seed that like, this is new, but I'm giving it to you for free, limited time only, so all the members understand that this might get taken away from them. And then you kind of take it away from them and say, hey, if you want access to everything, you have to pay the new full price. So that's like the general idea. It takes some work, both like marketing wise, planning your products, and sometimes custom code to facilitate it.
To clarify, Ryan said just turning off new checkouts for the old plan.
Yeah. So if you like, one way you could do it, like create a new level, it's higher priced, put all the features in that price that people want. You can, there's a button to check to disable the old level, so it won't show up on the levels page and people can't check out. But people who already have the plan, it'll still renew and check for them. They'll get a new order when it renews. But if they want, they'll be forced to upgrade to the new plan. And if sometimes you can like, you give them the carrot on the stick is like, everyone wants this new thing, so they're going to upgrade. And if they don't want the new thing, like that's cool. Let them just, stay in the old plan. But sometimes you have to, after a while, say like, okay, hey, on January 1st, I'm going to cancel everyone who hasn't upgraded yet, kind of a thing. And have people move to new plans. Yeah, it's not, I think it's almost like, and this stuff is so idiosyncratic to the type of membership site. Like it'd be good for us to case study some of these as we go through them, because like the different stories map. And a lot of them are better if you can think in advance, because it's like, oh, I was telling people they get all the new add-ons for free, and so now I'm going to try to charge for the add-ons. You're like in a little bit of trouble. Whereas if you had this understanding that like, hey, at some point I'm going to want to raise prices and the price is going to be linked to what add-ons they have access to, you can frame it as like, I'm giving you limited time access to the new thing that wasn't there when you first signed up, that kind of thing.
So Rose has a question. Are you
Yeah.
sending us a copy of the document that's on the screen? I'm going to say, Rose, if you reach out to us at paidmembershipspro.com/contact, we can either share that
Yeah.
document or we can just copy and paste Jason's notes there into the
Yeah.
email
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah. Maybe.
But
Yep.
just reach out and say that Sam and Jason said to ask for the open office hours notes, and we will get that shared.
Okay. Cool.
But I think Rose did submit a question ahead of time.
Oh, is this the Rose?
I
Yes.
think it might be the Rose. I don't know.
Rose, who's a web designer working on content. Oh, I don't steal your show. Go ahead. You can read it.
So like Jason said, web designer working on content, moving from a single membership dues price to multi-tiers. I'm looking for both web content that I can use for email and MailChimp. And you had some notes there.
Yeah. So I felt like I needed more info. So Rose, in the comments, if you can share like what kind of customers you have, and then like what industry or who your customers are. And then I think you're saying that you're looking for content that you personally can share and post in your site and emails, or if if you could clarify what you meant by that question of looking for content. I mean, maybe that you're just like, hey, here's why I'm watching, and hopefully you're getting some of that content. And if we share this doc, feel free to share it with other folks. But if you had more specific questions around that, I can talk a little bit about why you're posting some of that feedback. Moving from a single membership price to multiple tiers. So I can talk about that. So one thing I pointed out already was like the value metric. If you can figure out what that is, that really helps you figure out how to tier things. It should naturally, like, free members only get so much of this, and when they grow and need more, they get more, and when they grow and they need more, they get more. And kind of for us, that's add-ons. So starting, with free, you just charge for access to things. Usually if your membership site is successful, you need some other add-ons. Those standard add-ons we put in our standard plan. Usually if you're more successful or more complicated site, you need the plus add-ons and you get the plus. And then if you're running multiple sites, you need Builder. So that's it in theory. For a membership product, actually, the number of members is the perfect value metric. Like, as the number of members goes up, you get more money or charge more. The nature of open source software and WordPress, we can't use that as a value metric. Like, we're delivering software and we're kind of not allowed. It doesn't make sense. People, it's not how open source software usually works, where we just take more money because you have more users. Like, we avoid these like artificial, these like artificial tolls, on the software. It's like, it should feel more natural, and open source, it doesn't. But if we were a SaaS product, it would feel very natural. It's like, I'm making more money. I charge a percentage of sales. So if you figure out your value metric, it helps that next step go really well, go better. And so a couple of tips, also thinking about multiple membership tiers, to try to limit it if possible to 3 at a time. There's a concept called analysis paralysis. The analysis paralysis. And there's probably like a Harvard Business Review or wherever like the study was around that, but they showed people, like 3 plans and 4 plans and 2 plans and 7 plans and 8 plans. And at above 3, people like lose the attention and you just get fewer signups. The decision between picking between the 4 or 5 or 6 plans is so burdensome that they're like, whatever, the alternative only had 2 plans, or maybe they're just like, this, maybe this isn't worth it. Or they talk themselves out of it. So 3 is kind of like the known limit. An important caveat there is it's 3 on screen at a time. So like, I think Ryan realized like, oh, the old level I can turn off and it doesn't show up anymore. Or if you do have like coaches and students, maybe there's 3 coach plans and 3 student plans, right? So you still have 6 plans total, but only 3 on screen at a time. Or maybe, you try you're trying things out, but try to limit it to 3 at a time. Another thing that helps with multiple tiers of product is what's called like a price anchor, or sometimes called a decoy price, which really kind of boils down to putting big numbers around your price. So the way that study goes is, if you say like, man, are you building a membership site all on your own? You might pay a developer $3,000 to $30,000. Like, that's a lot of money. You can do it with PMPro for just $300. And because I anchored like the $3,000 or the $30,000 price, the $300 doesn't sound as much. And actually, these studies are fun to look up because they're a little ridiculous, because the price like doesn't even have to matter. Matter. Like, I think it was the one study was just the ID that the student got. Like, they were like, hey, okay, you're next in the queue, you're number 99,354. Like those. Oh, and then there's like a survey. How much are you willing to pay for a cone of ice cream? The people who had like a higher ID number were willing to pay more. So it's just like your brain is like, big number, this one's not so small, or not so big. But it's even better if it kind of makes sense. So like throwing, thinking about that. I think Marcos Rivera has like a really good rule of thumb, which I think it's like, I should figure it out, but it's something like 2 to 3. So if you have small, medium, large is pretty common. Like the price difference between your small, your medium, and your large should be, I forget, like within a percentage, like at least 50% more, but no more than 3 times or 2 times or something like that. So there's kind of these rules. I have to look them up, look up Marcos's stuff. It's like if you have 3 plans, you don't want them to be so different. If I could put my desktop back on the screen, I'll do that. Some of the stuff in what he calls the 2020 vision framework, like, gives you an indication that you need to change some of your plans. And again, Rose, I'm buying time for you to ask a more specific question or give some more feedback if you want, in the comments. So if you're seeing less than 20% of your customers push back on your price, that's probably an indication that you're charging too little. And I think this one is like there's always like a hesitancy to, like, the squeaky wheels. People complain about your price, and you want to avoid that so much that you're sometimes hesitant to increase your prices. But realistically, like 20% of your customers should push back on price. Or I used to target a 10% refund rate, because if you don't have any refunds, it means like the money didn't matter to people. It wasn't enough money to matter. Like, and it was like, oh, like you kind of weren't pushing hard enough. You could have got people to pay more. So there's kind of if your refund rate is like 10% is a little high now, like, but if it's lower than 5%, there's an indication you might not be charging enough. If, fewer than 20% of your customers ever bring up price, it's an indication you might be charging enough. If you there's some here too about like discounts. If like you offer discounts, it shouldn't be more than 20% of all the people who are paying for your thing. That's a bad sign. 20% or less of new recurring revenue from expansion. This is kind of like a if you've been going for a couple of years, like an indication or a thing to look into. Expansion revenue is like going from the small tier to the medium tier to the large tier, like upgrades. And so at least 20% of your new revenue should come from existing users, expansion revenue. But that's only for like established membership sites. Seeing more than, this is the one I was thinking about with the tiers, is if more than 20% of your customers are in the lowest tier plan, it's kind of lopsided. You really want that as an on-ramp to, the middle tier should probably have the most, and then, like 50% and then 25% on each side, kind of a thing maybe. But if you have more than 20% in the lowest tier, that's a bad sign. And then 20% gross revenue churn per year. So churn is something that I always say people worry about too early. And it's funny because I think there's successful business people who are in year 3 or 5 of their business, and churn is really important to them. And so they talk about churn and it's like, oh, it's the most important thing. And it's not important. But if you don't have any members yet, like, you want to get new users. But after a certain, like, the number of new users coming in is kind of bigger than the users you're keeping. After a while, after a few years though, like, churn becomes more important. So I hesitate to like talk about too much, because if you're just starting out, it's a weird one to look. But if you've had like a couple years of membership, revenue under your belt, like, definitely it's a statistic you want to keep track of. And if your revenue is churning more than 20% per year, look at that. And win rate. Kim had a question.
Yes, she did.
Yeah.
How would you average that? Some assessment of bounce rate on checkout pages plus feedback and interviews.
How would I average what? Oh,
I think
the
all those like 20% things that you were talking
oh
about,
yeah. I
points that you were
think
going over there.
yeah, this and again, like read the book. I'm all about this because I just read it, but I think it's mostly it feels like a bouncing act, but it's just indicator. It's indicators to look into something. It's not always bad, but it's like, hey, this is an indicator you need to look. Um, there, there is an idea of if you're gathering some of these stats, uh like how many people are pushing back on price, you could keep track of that, or definitely refund rate. Most tools are keeping track of that. Um, and you kind of can like increase your price until you hit the sweet spot. So and this is like when you're just starting out. Like again, you don't want to you can only kind of do this once, and only when you have a relatively small number of new members. But if you're trying to squeeze into the right price, you kind of man, I'll try to find and share it. There's like a better format, but it's basically like pick the price and then increase it until you hit some of these ratios. And then it's like, hey, this must be the sweet spot. So yeah, you could. I wonder how like to collect that exactly to get that ratio. I don't know. I think Marcus probably talks about it in the book. I'm going to read it and tweet it. So follow me on Twitter at Jason_Coleman, and I'll answer that question better. I don't have it off the top of my head and don't want to look around.
Well, that's our hour, unless you want to keep going about something.
Very good. What's going on? This was good. That was good. Oh, I have. Let me. I'll try to blast through some like.
Kim wants to keep going.
Yeah. Okay. Fun. Some resources. So I talked a lot about Marcos's stuff because it's on my mind, and he has so many of these frameworks that actually make it easy to think about some things that were important. But some other, like another cool resource is Patrick Campbell, who works at Profitwell, and he sold that company, but maybe is still working there. But he has these awesome pricing page teardowns on Netflix, so we can like share that link. If you search for pricing page teardown, you get Patrick, that's him on the left, and his buddy going through. And some of these are years old, but the advice is pretty good, and it's a fun show. Like they look at Netflix's pricing page. There's also like a really good YouTube video about value-based pricing that's very recent. It's like only a couple months old. And man, I just felt like he had like lots of it's probably better than this past hour of like talking through pricing considerations. He's like the expert. One thing that
Give
really hit me
yourself
hard from
credit,
that.
Jason.
Yeah. One thing that hit me really hard in that interview he did, and we'll share that link, is he showed this graph here that I'm showing, which is on the I guess the y-axis there, up and down is the willingness to pay, and the I don't know if I can zoom in to make this easier. And the x-axis there is the importance, like how important it is to the customer, and then how much are they willing to pay for it. And the different quadrants of this graph correspond to different ways of thinking about features for your membership site or your business. The example he gave in the one interview was like Starbucks coffee or just coffee in general. Whereas like, what's really important is like the taste. How much does it taste? But what's the willingness to pay is like, I don't know which one on this, is it like people maybe are willing to pay for taste or not? It's like, it's kind of iffy. Probably they're a little bit willing to pay, but like there was things like where the coffee came from was really important to people. Like they cared about it, but their willingness to pay was not. Like they're like, wow, that's amazing. It comes from Africa, those beans. And they're like, cool, pay twice as much. And they're like, oh, that's okay. I'll just get the other beans. So you can think about this in terms of like your own membership site, like features and content, that there's some content that people are willing to pay for. And this only comes out of like customer interviews and things and maybe surveys. And I bet you could find that willingness to pay is the phrase. So if like, how do I do a willingness to pay survey? It'd be like, oh, people are willing to pay for, acts like one-on-one coaching but is it important to them? So like, I think how are these? Oh, so if you look at these, they're called ads. So stuff that people are willing to pay for, but not really important. Those are like add-ons because not everyone cares about them, but some people really do. Bads, the stuff that people aren't willing to pay for and they don't care about, like you shouldn't do it. I think what he calls rads here is like, these are the things you just have to do. Cause it's like people are willing to pay for it and it's really important to them. Like, so that's like your core product. And then HADs, I forget how they label that, but that's maybe like, it's important to people, but they're not willing to pay. So you address it, but you don't, but we can share the link to this page. I forget what Patrick talks about it. This is like a lot of times your competition lives in here where like, it's important. It's not your focus, right? So maybe, it's important to your members, but it's not your focus. So like we have that with Paid Memberships Pro where like there's features that people really care about, but they're maybe not haven't shown willingness to pay. So, or just for whatever reason, like it's a differentiator. That different membership plugins may address it or not, or different membership sites might address something or not, because it is important, but only some people are willing to pay for it. And if your customer's not, you probably shouldn't build it. So that was like a cool idea, just sneak peek of that video on value-based pricing. Share that chart. Another one here I didn't get to that's interesting, like some folks can look at it, especially for high-priced communities, is this $1 Million Drill. Mike Killen is he has a service for, I thought I had it open, but I don't. For agencies, it's like what an intense screenshot he has on there. So for agencies to double their revenue in 90 days is like what he's going for now. And if you can find some of his content, it's called the $1 Million Drill. I'll try to find the best source for it. He had like a really awesome framework of like going backwards from like saying like, I want $25,000 per member per year. It's like a crazy amount of money for a membership community. And it was like, okay, how do I get there? Then he went backwards. Like, well, what kind of customer would pay $25,000 for access to a membership community and like not think twice about it? Like they got so much value that it wouldn't matter. And so for him, like doubling your agency revenue. So like if you are an agency making $100,000 a year and now you make $200,000 a year, you really don't mind that you paid $25,000 for figuring out how to do that. It's really simple. And then he's like, okay, like that's not easy to double someone's agency revenue from $100,000 to $200,000 or $500,000 to $1 million. He's like, well, what would have to be in place to be able to do that? And it's like, well, the agency would have to be like so many years old, would have to have a staff this big, would have to have 30 customers, would have to have an average price already of $5,000. So you could build like your ideal customer, like make it easy for yourself. So I'm building a community site and I'm trying to help people, get a raise. I'm trying to, what were some of the ones people thought about before? There was like nonprofits and coaching. Okay. I'm trying to help coaches double their coaching income by giving them a course on how to do that. Well, hey, like if they went from $100,000 to $200,000, they wouldn't mind paying $10,000, $25,000 a year for your service. Well, okay, what kind of coach? What's the perfect coach that you can help with your content to go from $100,000 to $200,000 in revenue? And like what would that be? Like they already have so many clients, they have an audience, a mailing list of a certain size. And what you do then is you basically build like a form that people have to fill out to access your community. Like, hey, like submit an interview. And then I think Mike like literally does like a one-on-one phone call interview. It's like, hey, this is a prestigious community. I'm definitely like, I am 100% going to help you make money or do this thing. And I only want to accept people it would work for. Like, are you someone's like willing to show up? Are you able, personality traits that happen to align with people who are, this works for? Anyway, it was really cool. I saw a presentation on it and I was in it. I want to talk to him and get more of his content out to PMPro people, because I think there are some of these community niches are like in the like high, trying to go for like a higher membership, higher dollar amount per member type deal. And so it's like, hey, build an interview process. What would the perfect person joining look like? And then find that person, make your content specific to the people having the challenges who fit the profile of like what you need. So that's like an interesting thing to look into if you're on that side. Localized pricing, we talked about a bit. So if you're interested in that, like email us and say you're interested, because I think in a couple months, like we'll put you on a list and try to get people to beta test stuff we're working on. And then discounts, go to our site, sitewidesales.com, for our site-wide sales product. There's a lot of content on the blog there, and about how to think. We didn't get into it a lot on here, like discounts. Like we talked about pricing, but like discounts is an important part of that. And how often do you discount? How big of a Black Friday discount? How do you figure out the discount rate? There's a ton of content on the site-wide sales blog that goes
We
into
could have
that.
a whole open office hours on just discounts.
Yeah, makes sense.
Because that's a big topic.
Cool.
Well,
We'll
our
keep this
next
on our YouTube
open,
channel. Okay.
yeah, I'm gonna keep this one up.
All right, good. Let's do it.
But I'm also gonna grab some shorts out of it too, because you had some good little nuggets of wisdom.
Good.
We actually have like a month break from open office hours, which feels weird, but at the same time, I think the team needs it. So for PMPros, I think it's our 13th birthday, kind of like the beginning of July. We're having a special birthday edition Ask Me Anything with both of our co-founders. So we're gonna have Jason and Kim here answering all of your questions. And we're just gonna make it a big like birthday bash. So it should be fun. Maybe we'll get some balloons.
Yeah, that'd be good. We should I want to make sure we'll try our hardest to get really good questions for that. So we'll pound the pavement. What I'm trying to think of the like we'll send a bunch of emails and tweets and bug people we know to kind of show up for that and ask us some stuff.
Yeah, and it's a special birthday edition. So I mean,
yeah,
come with questions from like everything, even when they started out. Because it'll be 13 years that Jason and Kim have done this now. So
wow, it's incredible. We got fun ones too then on using Elementor to design, preventing fraud. That's later in August. That's there's been an increase in spam attacks and fraud attacks lately, and so we're doing stuff like definitely upgrade paid memberships pro and enable all the spam features and follow our blog and all that stuff. But we'll do the lowdown on that.
Yeah, and in late August, we're also taking a break because a lot of
at WordCamp US.
Okay, that wasn't my headphones. It was you. Yeah,
it was my headphones.
Caught half of it.
My headphones died.
A lot of us are working, or a lot of us are going to be at WordCamp US. So actually, if I guess people watching the VOD and the people who are in the comments here, if you are going to be at WordCamp US in August 2023, outside Baltimore, I think it is, like a lot of the Paid Memberships Pro team is going to be there. So send us a note, like send us a contact form, hit us up on Twitter and reach out, and we'd love to meet up with you. I think we're going to try to find some ways for people to, sign up and get on our calendar. It's a big event and it's hard to cross paths. So get in touch ahead of time. So I'd love to like run into some customers and ask them questions to figure out how to change our pricing. No, I'm kidding.
No, but it'll be good because we'll have at least one person from every single department at WordCamp US. We've got marketing, dev, and
like, this sounds like a support question.
Yeah, go talk to that person.
Nice. Thanks, Sam.
Cool.
Thanks, everyone. Hope your weather calms down.
Yeah, me too. Somebody's got to take the dog out.
All right.
Thank you, everybody. See you next time.
Bye.